Bonjour everyone and welcome to Farmers Corners FC, the French football podcast with the accent. I'm glad to be back here after a 2-week break due to international football that we didn't really make a podcast of this time because I don't think the game were that interesting, and I'm saying that being French. France who played 3 times during those 2 weeks, a friendly against Ukraine that they won 7-1, and then 2 Nations League games against Portugal and Croatia, 2 games that promised to be pretty good. France-Portugal ended up being 0-0, and then they beat Croatia in Croatia 2-1, which is good for France in the Nations League. The game themselves were quite interesting, I guess. If you like Didier Deschamps, it was pure Didier Deschamps. A lot of very good defense and a team very well in place. And then we scored when we needed to score against Croatia. You should check the Mbappé goal, by the way, against Croatia. The second goal, that pass from Pogba and from Digne, are actually beautiful. Today we're going to discuss, obviously, match day 7 in Ligue 1, and before we talk about match day 7, we're going to do our usual Farmers Focus, and this week the Farmers Focus is on the UEFA Champions League and the Europa League that starts this week. We're going to talk about the teams that the French teams are going to face this week, and we're going to do that every week when there's European games coming up. So you know the drill. We're going to start first with our music. Alright, so let's talk about the Farmers Focus first. European football start this week, finally. All of the national championship have started again, and now it's time for the Champions League to enter. A lot of games are going to be played in October and November because the schedule is a bit cramped with the Euro at the end of the year, obviously. This week, the UEFA Champions League will be on Tuesday and Wednesday, as usual, and on Thursday we'll have the Europa League. The French clubs involved are Rennes for the first time ever in Champions League, Paris and Marseille in Champions League, and Lille and Nice in Europa League. So let's talk about Rennes with their very, very first game in Champions League. They're going to face Krasnodar. So Krasnodar is a Russian team, a young Russian team, only 12 years old. It was created in 2008, and it's a team that some French people know well because players like Cabella play in Krasnodar, and players that used to play in France before ended up in Krasnodar, like Caboret, who used to play for France, and now Ristic, who play in Montpellier, actually comes from Krasnodar. Krasnodar is a club that, like I said, has a young history, only 12 years, but that very, very quickly started in 3rd division, very quickly find themselves in 1st division after 3 years, and since 2013, they never finished further than 5th on the table. So they've consistently been at the top of the Russian league. Last season they finished 3rd, which I guess entitled them to play the playoff to get into the Champions League, and they won those playoffs against the PAOK Salonique, the Greek team. The 2-3 players that you have to be careful when you play Krasnodar, and I'm sure Rennes will be overly careful, are obviously Remy Cabella, but also Marcus Berg up front, who's a pretty solid striker. They are not having the best beginning of the season in their league. Krasnodar, after 11 games, they won 5, drew 3, and lost 3, so they're only 7th on the table. But that's a pretty tight league. The first at 24 points, and Krasnodar 7 is at 18 points. So it's only 2 games away, really, that Zenit are. This week the game for Rennes will be definitely interesting at Roazhon Park, still in front of only 5,000 people in the crowd, which is better than 0, knowing that there's a curfew in France right now. And I think it's quite a challenge for Rennes to actually play Krasnodar when we know that if whatever they do against Krasnodar, the next games are going to be even less easy versus Chelsea and Sevilla. So I think if they have any hope to go to the round of 16 or even to stay in the Europa League after the groups, they need to take as many points as possible against Krasnodar. The game will be on Tuesday night or Wednesday morning where I am in Rennes. The second the second team, obviously, that's involved is Paris, and Paris is going to be playing against Manchester United. Manchester United, old friends of Paris Saint-Germain. The last time both teams played together was the famous Champions League round of 16. It was when Paris Saint-Germain won 2-0 in Manchester, and Mbappé has those famous words, let's not talk about fear, we're here to play football, let's not talk about fear, blah 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 blah, just because everyone thought that Paris was probably cursed, and it all turns out that the second leg in Paris, Manchester United won 3-1 with that I guess severe penalty that was given to Manchester United, severe for Paris Saint-Germain, and that victory at the last minute for Manchester United that disqualified Paris from the Champions League in 2019. I mean, since that, a few changes. Obviously, Paris Saint-Germain made it to the final of the Champions League in that final 8 in Lisbon. Manchester United have changed coach with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer now at the head. I think it was probably one of his first game, actually, that game against Paris. I'll have to check. But yeah, and Manchester United, who doesn't have the best start in the league this season either, 2 wins and 2 losses, and one of those losses being that 6-1 loss against Tottenham a couple of weeks ago. What Manchester United has done well this weekend, though, is bouncing back, and they just won 4-1 against Newcastle. Mind you, it was 1-1 for the longest time, and then in the last 4 minutes of the regular time plus additional time, Fernandes, Wan-Bissaka and Rashford score, so the score ended up being 4-1. Bruno Fernandes, that we just discussed, is definitely one of the players that Paris Saint-Germain will have to focus on. He's a midfield that is really the heart and soul of Manchester United since he joined. Pogba is not at his level yet for the Red Devils, although he did well with the French national team. So Manchester United is really relying heavily on Bruno Fernandes. Uncharacteristically, he missed a penalty this weekend, which is really unlike him, but he made it up by scoring at the end of the game a little bit later. Manchester United, that obviously who obviously has signed Cavani, the former Edinson Cavani, the former PSG man, this summer for free. So that's going to be a bit of a bittersweet maybe game for Cavani, who is the best scorer ever for Paris Saint-Germain, who hold the title of best scorer for the club of the capital. And I think it's definitely a game for Paris Saint-Germain to lose, because they are now on 5 wins in a row. They are definitely getting up in the right form. The last 3 recruits that they've done, should I say, Florenzi, Rafinha, Danilo with Portugal looked pretty good as well. I think they are definitely going to get stronger and stronger, and they will want to make a bit of an example of Manchester United when they face them on Tuesday night. The last team that is going to be in Champions League is Marseille, of course. Marseille back in Champions League, who is going to face the Olympiacos, and the last time those two teams faced each other was actually in 2011, where Marseille won 1-0 in Greece, but then lost 1-0 at home. The game is probably going to be quite even, and I think Olympiacos and Marseille will both fancy taking points during that game, because again the other two teams are Manchester City and FC Porto, so that those two the duel between Olympiacos and Marseille on paper looks like the duel to get to the Europa League. We'll see where City and Porto are, obviously, after a couple of games. Olympiacos with Valbuena in their team. Valbuena, the former Marseille player, and Olympiacos, who are actually in fine form right now in Greece. They have played 4 games, they still haven't lost, 3 victory and 1 draw, and they have one player that's definitely in very, very fine form, and that player is Youssef El Arabi, who has scored 5 goals in the last 6 games. Very, very much in form. This weekend he just come off a hat-trick against Atromitos, and Youssef El Arabi, Ahmed Magoub, Valbuena. There's a lot of good players in that team right now, Olympiacos has been a team that in the last 5 years maybe wasn't the best team in Greece, but since Pedro Martins took over, I think it was in the second half of the 2017-2018 season, He's definitely brought some stability, the Portuguese coach, in that Greek team, and in his first full season, he ended up finishing second on the table. And then in his second full season, he won the league, and he won the league with I think a margin of 22 points on PAOK, who finished second. So Olympiacos is definitely trying to setting up as the best team in Greece, and obviously he goes through actually getting some good results in Champions League, and that game against Marseille is going to be a real test for the club of the Piraeus. If we now talk about the Europa League, the first game of Europa League is going to be, so both games are going to be on Thursday, and the first game is going to be Bayer Leverkusen against Nice. Nice and Bayer Leverkusen, two teams would play each other for the first time in their history. Two teams who are doing okay in their leagues. I guess Bayern Leverkusen is on, I think is undefeated for the past 4 or 5 games, and Nice is on 2 wins against Nantes and against Etienne that we're going to talk about a little bit later. Bayer Leverkusen, who's a team who's lost obviously one of their best players with Kai Havertz, who went to Chelsea during the summer mercato, at the very, very end of that mercato actually. We can still count on Patrick Schick that they bought from AS Roma to replace Havertz, but also a range of players that are just very, very talented and have been consistently good in Bundesliga. Moussa Diaby, Ezequiel Palacios, Leon Bailey, Paulinho, Arangis, quite a good solid team all around, that will not be easy for Nice to be able to beat. This season they're not having the best time either in the Bundesliga, just because they are struggling to win, 1-0 and 3 draw in the last 4 games, but what they can definitely do is use that game, that midweek game, to actually try and boost their confidence, and a game against a team that supposedly is a little bit less good, Nice, just by the lack of experience in Europe, and a game that will be played in Germany will definitely be a game that the Bayer will fancy win. The other game in Europa League this week will be Lille playing against Sparta Prague. Lille against Sparta Prague in Czech Republic. In Sparta Prague will be also a very interesting game, and Lille definitely fancies winning this one. Lille looks like a bit of the second best team maybe in that group. The group is Milan AC, Celtic Glasgow, Sparta Prague, and Lille. And Lille, with their recruitment, with their obviously their famous recruitment that we've discussed, and with Luis Campos, and just with the beginning of their season, they're still undefeated in Ligue 1. Really look like that team that's a little bit bigger than, a little bit better than at least Sparta Prague and maybe also Celtic. It's just about, are they going to be able to show it on the bigger stage? Sparta Prague was having a cracking beginning of the season. 6 wins in 6 games, and they scored 20 goals, only conceded 6, but Lille is the best defense of Ligue 1 and they've only conceded 2 goals, so it's going to be the kind of duel that we like to see. Sparta Prague last season, who finished 3rd on their league, and 3rd, a good 20 points away from Slavia Prague, who had finished 1st, so nowhere near contending for the title. This season, Slavia Prague, who's a team who's, I guess, resolutely Czech. They have a lot of Czech players in their team, not a lot of imports, I guess. And in the few games already played, Julis and Holzek have scored 6 and 4 goals. So again, a team that's pretty solid offensively, like we said before, and that's going to be a very good game for Lille. Okay, that was the quick rundown for the European games coming up this week. Obviously, I'm looking forward to see my team Marseille playing in Champions League again. I'll be awake bright and early, and then depending on time, I'll see if I have time to do a podcast just after the Europa League games to debrief a little bit all those 5 games, or if we just mention it next week in our usual Ligue 1 podcast. La Ligue 1, let's jump into it. Match day 7, who started on Friday with 2 games for the 2 teams that were going to play in Champions League on Tuesday, Rennes and Paris Saint-Germain. The first game was Dijon against Rennes. Dijon against Rennes, 1-1. Rennes still undefeated. The goals, Rennes scored first by Martin Terrier, his first goal with his new colors, and Dijon equalized after the halftime by Balde at the 54th minute. Rennes, who was playing with their new recruits, Rugani and Dalbert were in the starting lineup, and Grenier was back in the starting lineup. His first game since December 2019, Clément Grenier. Up front with Rafinha, Gon, Del Castillo was starting, and Guirassy, of course, was still there. The game finished with 60% possession of ball for Rennes, although the game was in Dijon. But Rennes and Dijon both shot 12 times at goals, 4 on target for Dijon and 3 on target for Rennes. Days before their first ever, like we were saying, Champions League game against Krasnodar, Rennes had the opportunity to give some players, I guess, a bit of a breather since they were playing in international games before. I'm thinking about Camavinga mainly, and Nzonzi wasn't there either, and also I think it was a good opportunity for the players like Rugani and Dalbert to actually get some game time, and also Grenier, of course, to get some game time to get ready for this sequence of games. There's going to be a game every 3 days and an international break in the middle of it, almost up until Christmas. It was good to see Grenier back after a year, and he's been actually good in the midfield. We can't say the same for Dalbert, the left back from Inter Milan, who wasn't great in that first game with Rennes. Another very interesting prospect, we saw Jérémy Doku, the Belgian recruit, who signed just before the end of the transfer window shut. For Rennes, we saw him playing 10 minutes, and in 10 minutes he showed us a little bit of skill, a little bit of back heel to show us how good he could be for his new team. Dijon, on the other side, were last before the game started and are still last after it. They are yet to win a game. They only took 1 point in 6 games before that game, so now they have 2 points in 7 games. And if it wasn't enough, they actually almost offered the goal to Martin Terrier, the defender from Dijon. Chala made a mistake, and Terrier was able to score his first goal with Stade Rennais. Luckily for them, Balde was able to equalize after the second half. A solid effort actually by Mama Balde up front, who was able to resist both Aguerd and Rugani to put it past Salin. That's his 7th goal for Dijon since he joined that side. It's only his first this season. Rennes obviously kept pushing and trying to get that victory, but just could not score. And Alagbe, the new goalkeeper from Dijon, since the goalkeeper from Dijon, Gomis, was bought by Rennes a couple of weeks ago, was actually probably one of the men of the match, and at the very, very last second of the game, at the 95th minute, a beautiful save prevented Rennes from taking all 3 points in Dijon. The next games for those two teams, Rennes is going to be obviously playing Krasnodar on Tuesday in Champions League, and then they'll be hosting Angers next week, and Dijon will have the hard task to go and play in Paris Saint-Germain, and it sort of looks like they're going to have another game without a win after next weekend. The next game was Nimes against Paris Saint-Germain. Paris Saint-Germain, who was playing 2 days after a lot of players were in international duties. To give you a bit of an idea of the players that were missing for Paris Saint-Germain, Verratti, Draxler were injured, Di Maria, Kurzawa, Marquinhos were suspended, Icardi and Kerrer were also a little bit injured, Neymar was rested, Danilo couldn't play because of COVID measure, because Cristiano Ronaldo was diagnosed with COVID, so every Portuguese player had to quarantine for at least 2 or 3 days before the test negative was taken into consideration. So Paris started with a bit of a different team. Navas in goals, Florenzi, Diallo and Kimpembe in defense and back here, Paredes, Rafinha and Gay in the midfield. Rafinha, who actually had a very, very good game, and then Sarabia, Keane and Mbappé up front. The game ended up being 4-0 for Paris Saint-Germain. The game that the score sounds a bit harsher than what the game actually was. Mbappé scored at the 32nd minute and the second one at the 83rd minute. They were his 66th and 67th goal since he joined Paris in 2017. His 67th goal in Ligue 1. And then Florenzi scored at the 78th minute and Sarabia scored at the 88th minute. Nîmes, who took a red card very early in the game by Landre with a very, very dangerous and very stupid, actually, aggression at the 12th minute. So really the worst way to start for Nîmes. The game was a little bit scrappy at the beginning. By the 20th minute, Do had taken a yellow card for Nîmes. Rafinha and Gay had taken yellow cards for Paris Saint-Germain. Nîmes did actually okay to resist Paris Saint-Germain for almost an hour after they took the red card. I mean, they did concede at the half hour by Mbappé, but then the 3 goals came within 10 minutes at the 78th, 83rd and 88th minute. PSG could definitely have scored more goals in the first half with a great save by René de Nîmes goalkeeper. They also hit the post 3 times. So PSG deserved their win, and before Rennes and Lille were playing, before Lille was playing, so Rennes had played before, they were on top of the Ligue 1 and they scored 15 goals in their last 4 games and won their past 5 games. So Paris Saint-Germain definitely launched in that season. Nîmes, they just weren't able to show much after Landre was set off, unfortunately. Eliasson, the new recruit, showed a couple of good initiatives. He seems always keen on shooting from outside the box or whenever he had the ball, really. And then there was that nice little bicycle kick. He seems to be, to be creative and to not be too afraid of playing against one of the best teams in the world. He did some good stuff for his very first game in his new colors. Again, very hard to judge with Landre having a red card, with the player who's been the best player in Nîmes, in my opinion, Andrés Cubas, coming back from South America where he played with his team, with national team as well. Just not the best game, and obviously Zinedine Ferrat and Briançon the captain, and Ferrat, one of the better offensive players for Nîmes, were not here at this game either. So not the easiest way to play the best team in Ligue 1 for Nîmes, and rightfully so. Paris Saint-Germain did win that game 4-0. The next game for both teams, so Paris Saint-Germain will play against Manchester early in the week, and then will host Dijon at the end of the week, while Nîmes will travel to Bordeaux. Bordeaux is our next game. They traveled to Marseille this weekend, and they hadn't won in Marseille in 12 years, and they still haven't won. Marseille won 3-1. The goals: Thauvin at the 5th minute, Amavi at the 54th, and Pablo an on goal at the 64th, while Josh Maja scored for Bordeaux at the 83rd minute. For Marseille, Payet is suspended, took 3 games for that foul against Lyon on Dubois. So Cuisance from Bayern Munich, who just joined before the transfer window closed, was starting the game for André Villas-Boas' team. André Villas-Boas, who was composing without Payet, and so decided to go with a new formation, 4-4-2 with a diamond. So Thauvin and Benedetto were playing up front. Cuisance was a little bit of that number 10, with Camara, Rongier and Sanson playing under him. The fans and the pundit have asked André Villas-Boas actually why he wasn't playing that 4-4-2 with Payet, because it feels like Payet is the perfect number 10 with his technique and with his ability to always find danger. And André Villas-Boas had some very interesting words this week when he spoke to Mohamed Bouafsi and Eric Dimeco from RMC Sport. He actually explained that the reason why Payet doesn't play as a number 10 is because he has that ability of always going forward, and that, I guess more than ability, that will of always trying to make the difference when he's got the ball in his feet and always to go forward. And he has, I guess, a harder time to come back and defend. And André Villas-Boas was saying that with Ligue 1, where most teams are, I guess, parking the bus against Marseille or playing in counter-attack or transition game, when you get a player like Payet in the middle of the pitch, who's always trying to go forward, who's always trying to make the difference, when that player loses the ball, it becomes a huge liability if he's not able to come back fast enough. And that's why he'd rather put him on the left side, because on the left side he has the same ability to be, I guess, facing the game, the same ability to come in the middle and I guess bring that superiority, at least numerically, when it comes to play in the middle. And at least if he loses the ball, it's a bit less dangerous because the team is already well in place behind him. I think you can argue both, but I think what he was basically saying was that defensively Payet wasn't doing enough work to be able to play in 4-4-2, but maybe that game against Bordeaux and seeing how Cuisance played well will make him change his mind. Going back to that game, the first half was quite even. Marseille actually for the first 15 minutes played a little bit higher than they've been playing, a little bit better than they've been playing the first 6 games, and scored very, very early by Thauvin. Thauvin who also could have scored a second goal. Amavi got a penalty a few minutes after Thauvin scored the goal, but Costil, the goalkeeper from Bordeaux, saved the penalty. Costil, who stopped 16 of the 53 penalties that were going against him, which is an amazing statistic since he started Ligue 1. He's obviously the best goalkeeper in penalty in Ligue 1 so far with these statistics. Marseille, after that penalty, seems to just drop down a little bit and gave Bordeaux the ability to take the game over. Ben Arfa, sorry I didn't mention that, Ben Arfa was playing for Bordeaux, the new recruit that Jean-Louis Gasset brought to Bordeaux, the former Marseille man who won the championship with Marseille in 2010, who didn't show much really. Scored a goal but was offside. That was a beautiful goal actually, but he was offside when he scored that goal, and then besides that didn't really have the opportunity to show much of his talent. I think even if Marseille dropped down and sort of let the ball in Bordeaux's feet, their midfield was actually on point this weekend. Rongier and Camara were doing some very, very good work defensively. Morgan Sanson, maybe a little bit less, but still very, very hard for Bordeaux to actually get past this midfield. Bordeaux, who did not have any shot on target in that first half, which is a little bit scary for a team as well who's supposed to be as good as Bordeaux is, because there's some real talent in that team. Marseille, from that half hour on, actually came back a little bit higher on the pitch and was able to try and bring a little bit more danger in Bordeaux's zone. We didn't talk about it, but Marseille ended up having 56% of the ball possession and shot 6 times. 4 of them were on target. Bordeaux shot 8 times, and 4 of them were on target, but most of them were in the last 50 minutes. We're gonna come to that. The second half was, I guess, made easier by Marseille, scoring at the 54th minute by Amavi, and then 10 minutes later again a shot by Amavi deflected by Pablo. So 3-0 with half an hour to play. Marseille basically just played a little bit less, stopped pushing, and Bordeaux finally started playing after Josh Maja came in. So for the last 15 minutes, Bordeaux actually started accelerating and bringing the danger a little bit more to Mandanda. Basic, a free kick that he shot at the 73rd minute, ended up being the first shot on target for Bordeaux. 73 minutes without putting a shot on target, when we know the rivalry between Bordeaux and Marseille, not having their player able to bring the danger before is quite unacceptable for a team like Bordeaux. They were really uninspired up until Maja came in, because when Maja came in there was a little bit better, and mind you, he scored at the 83rd minute, a shot that Mandanda could not save. The game finished at 3-1. I think it was good to see that for Marseille. It was reassuring before Champions League. For Bordeaux, it's definitely worrying, and it'll be interesting to see what they do next week when they play against Nimes. Benoît Costil, the goalkeeper from Bordeaux, actually said in a post-game interview that he wanted to focus on the game against Nimes, which is more, as he said, their championship rather than Marseille. Basically saying that Bordeaux was almost trying to avoid relegation, which is really, really showing few ambitions for Bordeaux, but maybe also just a realistic take on what's actually now at stake for Les Grenats. This week, like I said, Bordeaux will play against Nimes, and Marseille, we said they were going to go to Greece to play Olympiacos on Wednesday, and then they will go to Lorient at the end of the week. Another perfect segue. The next game is Reims against Lorient. Lorient, who went and took all 3 points from Reims. 3-1. The goals Kasama from Rennes scored first at the 15th minute, and then Hamel scored at the 61st minute, Wissa at the 65th, and Mofi at the 80th minute. Lorient will finish the game with 53% possession, 14 shots, 4 on target, 3 goals. It's a bit poor for Reims. And Reims with only 6 shots and 3 on target. Reims who also got 2 red cards. Kasama, the goal scorer, got red carded at the 70th minute for a bad tackle on Hamel's ankle after VAR, and Donis at the 90th minute, a tackle from behind on Montpellier. Seems a bit like an overreaction, that red card, but the intention from Donis was looked quite intense, at least live. Lorient got their second win after the season opener versus Lens. In Ligue 1, they hadn't won since that game, and it was good to see the new recruit Mofi, who started for Lorient and actually scored at the 80th minute. Unfortunately, those 2 red cards were the 28th and the 29th red card given in Ligue 1, if I'm not mistaken. 30th and 31st, I think. Anyway, at the end of that match day, 35th red card has been given altogether in Ligue 1, which is huge. 35 red card in 70 games, 1 red card every 2 games. It's quite crazy. Reims is still struggling this season, 5 losses and 2 draws, and now they took 2 red cards. It's their worst start in their history, actually, 5 losses and 2 draws. And 8 of the last 10 teams who started the season with 2 or less points after 7 games ended up going to Ligue 2. We hope that is not going to happen to Reims. Obviously, we don't wish that on anyone, but the statistics are a bit harsh on the team. Kamasa's goal was actually a beautiful goal after 15 minutes. Perfect start for the home team. They really dominated that first half, and they really deserved a little bit better during that first half. Unfortunately, that just at halftime, Lorient came back really strong, and 5 minutes after a couple of dangerous opportunities, they finally find the back of the net at the 60th minute by Hamel, a real striker's goal. The ball is released in the middle of the park, and then Hamel just put it in, tapped it in. Sorry, it's his 3rd goal of the season. Hamel is having a good start of the season. Lorient actually offensively is quite almost scary. Gerbic, who's unfortunately injured, but Hamel, Wissa, and Mofi, now that we've seen, there's a bit of threats coming up front for Lorient. Mofi was fouled by Rajkovic a few minutes later, and that's when the penalty was scored by Wissa. Rajkovic was usually very good on penalty, and this time couldn't do much. And then Mofi, who scored the 3rd goal, like I said, at the 80th minute, at the end of a cross by another recruit, Lorienté, who just signed from Rennes. If we come back quickly to the red card, like I said, I think the red card for Kasama was a bit of a tough call. He looks like he tackles the ankle, but he looks like he just touches the ankle. It's definitely a little bit clumsy, but I don't know if it was really worth the red card. I mean, VAR decided so it is what it is. Donis' tackle was actually reckless, even though VAR would make it look like it wasn't that bad. In the intention, he really looked reckless. Lorient will host Olympique de Marseille at the end of the week, and Reims will travel to Montpellier for a complicated game for a team who's really struggling this season. The next game on was Strasbourg versus Lyon, a game that ended up being a win for Lyon, 3-2. The goals, Kadewere at the 12th minute, his first goal for Lyon, and then Toko Ekambi, who scored twice, 26 minutes and 42nd minutes, and Strasbourg, who came back just before and after the half. Diallo, the new recruit, at the 33rd minute, and Aholu, the other recruit, at the 55th minute. Strasbourg finished with 53% of the possession, 20 shots, 9 on target, and Lyon with 14 shots and 8 on target. And funnily enough, Lyon, who was known for their humongous amount of crosses, only had crossed the ball 3 times when he came to the 75th minute, and finished, I think, with like 8 or 9 crosses, not more than that. What was very good to see, obviously, was Memphis Depay coming a little bit more back in his groove for Lyon. 3 assists in the first half. The 3 goals come from him. One through ball for Kadewere, and then 2 passes for Toko Ekambi. Another player that was in fine form for Lyon was Anthony Lopez, the goalkeeper. Definitely saved a few shots and definitely helped his team not drowning early on. Lala as well, I think, had 2 or even 3 saved on his line. Kenny Lala, the defender from Strasbourg. So the score could have definitely been a little bit more dangerous, for a little bit more severe, should I say, sorry, for Strasbourg, but Lyon wasn't able to put those opportunities through. And then Lyon really, I guess, sort of scared themselves. Diallo, as soon as he came in, scored. Habib Diallo, who used to play for Metz, and Strasbourg bought him for 10 million euros just before the end of the transfer window. As soon as he came in, he scored. A bit funny that he came in at the 37th minute. Post game, the Strasbourg coach Thierry Loret said that he made a mistake starting the game the way he started it, so he rectified as soon as he saw that his team was 2 goals down. But that was good, because he was able to score after Lopez actually saved a first shot. He had quite a clinical finish for Diallo. Strasbourg was very poor defensively. I think that has to be said. Every time Lyon was going up front, they really looked dangerous for Strasbourg, and I think they would be lucky that they were able to almost bring it back to a draw toward the end of the game, because they definitely could have conceded more goals. For Lyon, what was very interesting actually was to see Paqueta, the midfielder who come from Marseille for 20 million euros, and he actually had a very solid game. He played in the middle with Thiago Mendes and Aouar first, and then with Gianluca and Aouar, and he did some good things. Very calm and composed, and quite the ability to find the right pass every time. He's obviously going to be one of those players that is a bit better than anybody else. We've seen him before in Marseille and back home in Brazil, but it's going to be very interesting, that midfield in Lyon, between Thiago Mendes when he's coming back in form, Paqueta, Bruno Guimaraes, Aouar, Kakere, a lot of solid players in that Lyon midfielder. They definitely should be a little bit higher on the table. Coming back to Strasbourg, Bellegarde, Simakan actually played quite well on the right wing and had a few opportunities to try and bring that 3rd goal through. Always somebody from Lyon though was yet to stop them, although Denayer was struggling, and so was Cornet. Marcelo was helping. Like I said, Anthony Lopez was definitely having his game. At the end, Lyon was also almost able to score themselves. A header from Marcelo, I saved on this line by Lala, and Dembele also had a chance on a header, but he went straight into Camara's glove. It would have been actually the 4th assist for Memphis Depay when Dembele didn't score that header. The game finished at 3-2, which is a good operation from Lyon, which is, I guess, a little bit reassuring, seeing that Garcia has changed a little bit the tactics of how his team play. Obviously a bad game from Denayer and Cornet in defense, but the rest of the team sort of did okay. It was also good to see De Chilio, the new right back, coming in. I mean, he could have been red carded, to be honest, on his first intervention, but besides that, we've seen a lot of promise, and we've seen that he was able to actually defend well and cross well, which is something that the Lyon defenders haven't been able to do really well recently. Neither of those teams will be playing in European competition this week, so Lyon's next game is against Monaco at the end of the week, and Strasbourg will be traveling to Brest. Next game on was Angers against Metz, 1-1. The goals, Mangani at the 38th minute on penalty, and Nget equalizing a minute later for Metz. Metz, who finished the game with 53% of possession, 7 shots on either side, only 2 on target for Angers, 3 on target for Metz. Before the game, Angers was 12th on the table and Metz 15, and I think the stats aren't lying. The game wasn't the most entertaining game we've seen, but look, it was a good result for Metz, who are keeping their series of good results in Ligue 1 with a fourth game without losing, despite a pretty animated fortnight for the club Lorient. Antonetti is back on the bench after he sort of stood down a year and a half ago to look after his dying wife, unfortunately, who passed in August, and he's now back on the bench. So Onion was, I guess, thanked for his service. But then just after Antonetti came back, Nian, the very, very good striker who started with Metz this season and who scored 6 goals, the 6 goals that Metz scored came from Nian, actually got injured, and it's the ACL that was torn, unfortunately, which means he's probably going to be out for a major part of the season. Add to that the sale of Diallo to Strasbourg, and imagine if Nian was injured before Diallo was sold, and Diallo would still be playing. And then the injury of Ambrose, mind you, Nenget, who took over Nian, scored this today, so that was a good result all in all. Visiting Angers was no simple task for Metz. The Moulin men, they were on 2 victories at home. And they also had to make up from that loss last week in Paris Saint-Germain 6-1. So they were really eager to actually came back on track. I'm saying last week, so I should say before the international break. Angers was playing with Bouffal and Amadou, their 2 recruits. They both started, and up front, Gioni was starting, the former Saint-Etienne man, because Baoken was suspended. The home side just had a hard time playing their usual football, though. I think having that many new players starting at once, we didn't see the usual pretty football that we've seen from Angers, except against Paris earlier this season. Bouffal did get the penalty for Mangani, and he got the penalty, I guess, a little bit luckily. I think it's a little bit silly from Metz, the Metz defense. They didn't realize that Bouffal was about to jump with a header, and that foot went all the way up and almost hit Bouffal in the face, so the penalty was definitely not contested, and Mangani was able to score it, luckily for Metz, and get equalized literally a minute later, and he just had to tap the ball in. He scored with his shin pad. That was about it really for that first half, and it was almost it for the game. Not a lot happened in the second half. Angers made 3 substitutions at halftime to try and sort of boost the team, but not a lot happened. Jimmy Cabot had a couple of almost opportunities, but Ukija did really well, the goalkeeper from Metz, and Bernardoni, the goalkeeper from Angers, also had to make sure he was on his A game to save that 1 point that Angers was able to get at home this weekend. The next games, Angers will be going to Rennes, and Metz will be hosting Saint-Etienne. 2 complicated games for those 2 teams. Next on, another 1-1 between Monaco and Montpellier, but definitely a different kind of 1-1 draw. Monaco, the goal came from Wissam Ben Yedder at the 70th minute on penalty, and Montpellier scored at the 51st minute by Mavididi. Monaco, who had 80.6% of the ball possession, which is the highest any team has had in the last 15 seasons of Ligue 1. I think since the stats are as pushed as they are, no one has ever had 80% possession in Ligue 1. Well, Monaco did. 21 shots, 7 on targets. Unfortunately, only 1 goal, so that possession was a little bit wasted. Montpellier with 3 shots, 2 on target, and 1 goal. That's what we call the real, clinical finish and real efficiency. Montpellier, who played most of the game with only 10 men. Savanier took a red card at the 19th minute, so that was 70 minutes played with 10 men from Montpellier. That red card from Savanier is not that it's severe or uncalled for, but Savanier doesn't even look at the player coming towards him. He jumps to control the ball with his foot high, and then the other player sort of put the head down, and the cleats and the player collide, and that's why the referee gives a red card. Nothing I guess ill-intended by Savanier, but the foot was definitely high. Those both teams, Monaco and Montpellier, had lost last week to Brest and against Nimes, and both teams had 10 points before the game. Florentino Luis, the new Monaco recruit, the Portuguese under-21 player, started for Monaco. Cesc Fabregas was left on the bench, and Montpellier were actually the first one to be dangerous before Savanier got the red card, because after that they were just definitely dominated hand and shoulder by Monaco. Mind you, the 80% justifies that. Monaco just were not able to score, and Ben Yedder scored, but he was offside in the first half, and then Chouameni, Martins, Diop, all of them tried their chance, but there was always a foot or the gloves or Omlin. There was always someone stopping the Monaco players. Diop had a good opportunity, but Omlin unfortunately stopped it. The second half started the worst way possible for Monaco as well, because after 5 minutes, a ball that didn't seem that dangerous in the middle of the pitch, CDB is not able to actually clear it properly, and Mavididi just started accelerating. CDB can't get him back, and Mavididi was able to just glance his shot past Lecomte, who couldn't do much on that shot. Montpellier, I think, felt pretty good and thought maybe they could do it, but unfortunately at the 70th minute, penalty kick helped. Ben Yedder scored and leveled the two teams. The penalty kick, that was definitely a right one. Souquet fouling Getson. Olmelin, the goalkeeper from Montpellier, definitely saved his team. A few efforts against Pellestri, against Ben Yedder again, meant that the both teams remain leveled. And on the table, they are still leveled as well with those 11 points, and they are 6 and 7 respectively. The next game for both teams, Montpellier will be hosting Reims, and Monaco will be visiting Lyon, the two teams that are usually in Europe, but not this season. Next game was Nantes against Brest. Nantes was 16 before the game starts, and Brest 11. Nantes won the game 3-1 and a very comfortable win for Nantes. 12 shots, 8 on target, 14 shots for Brest, 5 on target. Brest, who ended up with 60% possession after Nantes was basically winning 2-0. The goal scorer, Colomwani for Nantes at the 60th minute, Ludovic Blas at the 30th, and then Bamba at the 79th. Fèvre, beautiful free kick at the 68th minute. Nantes, who only had 1 point in the last 4 games, had to react, and maybe a few changes by Wokuv to try and make that happen. Corchia, the new right back, was starting. Jean-Kevin Augustin was left on the bench and came into the second half. But early on, Coco, Colomani, and Blast, the 3 offensive threats for Nantes, really toyed with the Reims defense. With the Brest defense, Brest, who just wasn't great defensively. Larsonner, the poor keeper, more often than not left to his own demise. And Colomani scoring at the 16th minute, Blas scoring at the 30th minute were no surprise, and there could have been more than that. Fabio hit the crossbar. There could have been more goals for Nantes. At halftime, Brest tried to get in Cardona and Le Doiron to change the game, and after 25 minutes, Fèvre had a free kick from outside the box. Beautiful left foot, straight into the top right corner. A good week for Fèvre, who scored also with the France under 21 against Liechtenstein earlier in the week. Nantes sort of took it easy in that second half, really. They sort of dropped down after they thought that, winning 2-0 at halftime was maybe enough, and Brest tried and took advantage of it. And Brest was in a very good sequence after they scored by Fèvre, but that's when Nantes scored their third goal. Larsonner, unfortunately, helped Brest not conceding more goals, but that goal from Bamba really sealed the deal for Nantes, who won that game 3-1. On the ladder, Nantes only gains 1 spot, but that's the second win of the season, which is very important for this team, who again has the talent to be higher on the ladder than what they are. Next game for both teams, Nantes will be visiting Lens, and Brest will be hosting Strasbourg. Next on, a bit of a surprising one, Saint Etienne against Nice. Nice, who won 3-1 in Saint Etienne, something that I guess I wasn't maybe expecting. Saint Etienne, who was 7th on the ladder before the game, and Nice 8th. The goal scorer, Les Melou at the 8th minute, Gouiri again at the 30th, and Maolida at the 92nd minute, for Aouchiche scoring for Saint Etienne at the 57th minute. 11 shots either side, 4 on target for Saint Etienne and 5 on target for Nice. Only 1 point in the last 3 games for Saint Etienne, 2 defeats, no goals. Still sort of figuring out life without Fofana, really. Today, Moulin, the goalkeeper, was also sort of guilty on both goals in first half. I mean, Yusuf was guilty. The young 18-year-old defender was also guilty on one of those goals. But yeah, the defense is just not playing well right now for Saint Etienne. They played a 3-5-2 today, or this weekend, sorry, and Resto started in that 3-5-2 defense, but it's just not really reassuring the way Saint Etienne are playing since they had that very good start of the season. Mind you, Nice also made the goalkeeper Benitez also made a mistake, which is very uncharacteristic for him, on Aouchish's goal. But Nice really seemed a little bit too strong for Saint Etienne, and even when Saint Etienne was down only 2-1, and even if they're trying to push, Nice didn't seem to be worried at all, and Maolida scored at the 92nd minute. Maolida and Gouiri, the two goal scorers, were both former Lyon players, will be happy to have scored in Le Chaudron for that important victory for Nice before they are playing the Europa League this week. I think it was good, also a good victory-ish, I guess, for Patrick Vieira, who's being a little bit criticized for the way he plays, and he's an inspiring, I guess, way of playing. Scoring 3 goals in Saint Etienne is quite important, especially when you know that Dolberg wasn't playing after his injury, contracted playing with the national team on the ankle. They hope that he's going to be able to play on Thursday in Europa League, and that's all that we wish for them. The next few games, so Nice is going to Leverkusen in Europa League, and then we'll be hosting Lille in the game of the weekend next week, and Saint Etienne will be traveling to Metz for a game where they will really want to get some points. Last game of matchday 7 was Lille against Lens, le Derby du Nord, the first Derby du Nord since 2015 in Ligue 1, and Lille who won that game 4-0. Lille was very, very dominating during that game. Yilmaz scored first at 11th minute, and then Bamba at the 48th, Ikone at the 69th, and Yazici at the 79th minute. 2 red cards for Lens during that game. Gradet got his second yellow card at the 58th minute, and then Michelin got a straight red at the 75th minute. Lille, best difference before the game, only conceded 2 goals, as still the best defense, and are yet actually to be chasing the score in Ligue 1 this season. They haven't conceded a goal in the first half this season, and they haven't been in a situation where the other team scored before them, which is very, very reassuring for Christophe Galtier and his men. Lille dominated without really shooting on goals at first. Lens tried to brought the ball in Lille's box, but the defense of Lille was very, very dense. I mean, Fonte and Botman in defense is just beautiful to see. I think Fonte is that that old players who knows all the tricks and who knows what to do and when to do it and where to be placed. And next to him, Botman is just like a sponge, really, just learning from a great defender and just trying to apply it. And Botman is strong, he's fast, he's tall. So it's really good to see again the way Lille plays. There's a bit of a crisis happening backstage for Lille, with what's his name, Luis Campos, apparently saying that he wants to leave the club, which might leave the club in a problematic situation, because Luis Campos was a little bit of the man who's making the money for the president, Gerard Lopez. But besides that, on the field, things are going really well. I mean, the only player that maybe things aren't going well for is Jonathan David, the most expensive recruit that Lille has ever made for 30-something million. Jonathan David was yet to score, and Galtier left him on the pitch for the whole game, thinking that at 3 or 4-0 maybe he's going to have an opportunity. You can definitely see that he's just completely out of confidence. His touches on the ball, always doing that extra touch to try and be in the perfect position to be able to score, and always sort of wasting too much time doing that and getting caught by the defense. You really wish that he's going to actually develop into the player that he used to be when he was playing for Ghent, because in the meantime, Yilmaz is not wasting time. He came free and he just scores almost every game. Ikone had a very good entrance. Ikone on the bench is quite rare for Lille. He came in and he scored. Renato Sanchez had a very good game in the midfield. I think Lille is really coming together now in that Liga. We'll see what they're doing when they're playing in Europa League this week, because like I said, I think they're one of the favorite of their group. But also now they are on top of the ladder in Ligue 1, which is definitely well deserved for one of the two teams that is undefeated with Rennes. Next week, Lille will be traveling to Nice, and of course play Sparta Prague during the week. And Lens will be hosting Nantes this weekend. Alright, that's about it for today's podcast. Thanks again for being here. A great day in Ligue 1. 35 goals in 10 games. A few yellow cards here and there. 6 yellow cards for this match day. It's quite terrible. But yeah, 35 goals is the most goals that has been scored in Ligue 1 this season so far. So it was good to see. Thanks again for being here with us. Farmers Corners FC, French football with the accent. The name is Jeremy Magan. If you guys want to contact me, give me some feedback, leave some comment, Twitter, Facebook, wherever you want. Would love to hear from you guys. And I'm quite excited about seeing back the European football this week. It's going to be quite intense and interesting to watch that. Thanks everyone. Merci beaucoup. À la semaine prochaine.